This interview is about the draft of men into the United States Armed Forces. The Selective Service had a lottery drawing to determine the order of call for induction, which men would be inducted. They went by birth dates. Their headquarters was in Washington, D.C. Here we have someone William Henry B., who experienced the Draft Act. Where were you born?
I was born in Salisbury, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children, a daughter and 2 sons.
When the Draft Act was implied, where were you living when you were drafted?
I was living in Baltimore, Maryland.
From 1948 until 1973, men were drafted to fill vacancies. Do you remember how old you were when you were drafted?
I was 20 years old when I got drafted
Do you remember?
in 1951.
1951? Do you remember if any of your friends got drafted?
A lot of them got drafted before me. Some got drafted with me. Some drafted after me.
Like all from like high school? Or like neighborhood?
Well, in neighborhood and college. In fact, I was in college when I got drafted.
You were in college?
Yes.
Which college were you in?
I was going Columbia University in New York City.
In New York City? Do you know which service? Do you remember which service some of your friends went into?
All 4, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force.
President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Selective Training and Service Act of 1940, which created the peacetime drafts. What was your experience with the drafts? You decided, did you choose which service did you go into?
I enlisted instead of being drafted, which I would have gone in the Army. I chose to go in United States Air Force for 4 years.
You chose, so it was you had a choice. It
Yeah.
was either the Army. The draft was for.
Yeah, you could be drafted or you could join one of the services.
You could join one of the services.
So I joined United States Air Force.
Okay. Did anybody join with you?
No, not at the time.
You were just the only one picked the Air Force.
Yes,
Oh.
some went in the Navy, but I went in the Air Force.
What was the war? What was the draft for?
Korean War
The Korean War.
going on.
Okay. So did you travel?
No, I didn't travel. I just went through basic training. Then I went to photographic tech school, and then I got stationed in the state of Washington
In the state of
as
Washington.
a ground photographer
Where was the school? The photography
in
school.
Denver, Colorado.
You went to school in Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
How long was were you in the photography school?
16 weeks.
And then you traveled to where?
Spokane, Washington,
Spokane, Washington.
state of Washington. Yes.
Is it an Air Force base over there?
Yes, 2, in fact.
2 Air Force bases?
Right.
Did you go to both Air Force bases, or were you just on one Air
I
Force?
was just on one.
Just one.
Right.
And so, what kind of photography did you take when you were in the Air Force?
Ground photography.
Ground photography?
Right.
Like
Developing film from the reconnaissance planes fly over, and then to bring the films back, we developed them and made prints.
oh wow. Did you? Is there anything else? Was that like your main? That was right
Yeah.
after the institute. That's
my
what they
job,
trained you
yeah.
for. Okay.
That was my job in Air Force
Did you have
after finishing school.
after finishing school? Do you how long did you do that for?
3 years.
For 3 years?
3 years.
All in Washington State?
Yes.
Okay. Um, did you enjoy your time in the service?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Just had 9 to 5 job, and that was it.
That was it. When you came home from the draft, was it a lot of your friends? Did people do different times in the draft? Did they serve different uh, amounts of, of, like you said, you were in there you went to school for 16 months, so that was like a year and a half.
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
Mhm.
Okay, so you were there for 4 years in the Air Force?
Right.
Everyone served 4 years?
In the Air Force, yes.
Okay, in the Air Force.
Well, some fellows re-enlisted for 4 more, but you couldn't enlist for less than 4 years.
Okay.
The
And
Army was 2 years, but the war was going on, and quite a few guys I know got killed during the war, and I didn't want to go in the Army to do any fighting, so I went in the Air Force.
and for 4 years. So when people were home, so some people were home by the time you came home from the
Yes.
Army. Who were in the Army? They only served 2 years in the Army.
Right. Some got out lucky enough to get out.
Oh, okay. Well, I thank you for your time today. Uh, appreciate that, and have a good day.
Okay, quite well.